something very different.
Yep.
Do you think as generations go past, we develop more and more distractions?
It depends on our lifestyle choices.
Right.
If we have succumbed to the modern insistence that the more entertained you are, the more rich your life,
Yes.
then it may well be that you're living in somebody else's dream all the time and you're never fully in the moment, which is exactly the opposite of what religion wants, because it wants us to be aware of the amazingness of the moment. But if you look at even secular clinicians, they will say that distraction is very normal for small children, and then the capacity for concentration grows with adolescence, and it actually peaks in the early 40s statistically.
Subhanallah.
That's when people are most able to really concentrate and their careers are flying, or they're looking after children and doing it really well when the children are in the teenage years, and you really have to be fully paying attention or anything can happen. And then when you get to my kind of stage in life, you get a little bit childlike and distracted again. It does start to go down. These of course are averages.
Yes.
But it's certainly the case that if you look at fully traditional human beings who have been brought up without screens, with very attentive mothers in particular, and they're allowed to go out and play with other children and do normal childish things, that they do have remarkable capacities for really concentrating in adult years. If you've been with traditional scholars in Mauritania, they hear something once and they never forget it, because their brains are functioning normally.
Yes.
If you look at somebody like Imam Ghazali, rahmatullahi alayh, who may have written 200 books, including books which are like his Al-Basit fil Fiqh, which is maybe 30 volumes of complex arguments in Shafi'i law, and yet he was only 55 when he died and spent much of his time wondering that you would figure out how is that possible before
Where did
the
he get
word
the time?
processor.
Yeah.
When nowadays, a top professor might publish 4 books in his life,
Yes.
and everybody claps and he gets some kind of medal when he retires,
Yes.
and that's regarded as a productive career. How was he able to do so much when he had so little technical and administrative support? Well, it's because his mind was properly functioning, and he was not distracted here and there and stopping halfway through each sentence, but he just wrote and wrote and wrote. And didn't really need to correct things because he just did it right the first time. So it's quite worrying when you look at the medieval scholars and you see how brilliantly and how powerfully they wrote. These are books that still affect us 9 centuries later, compared to our sort of childlike, hyper-distracted and also very egotistic modern styles of writing and scholarship. That's a very severe and unanswerable refutation of modernity's claim to have liberated the mind and to have opened new capacities. In fact, we're all kind of little toddlers, barely able to get anything done because we're so easily distracted. It's quite depressing, really.
It is indeed. And subhanAllah, you've mentioned the children and the state that they are in and what would be ideal for them. We've got, mashallah, children running around and enjoying themselves in the masjid here today. And so is this what Islam tells us to do? Is this the ideal model for a child going into adolescence and then adulthood?
Well, children are natural learners, but they have to learn naturally, which means that a child goes out and plays in the street, plays in the park, eats mud when it's 2 years old and gets certain immunities and fights and learns about boundaries and learns not to push certain boundaries rather than being constantly pulled back by anxious parents who are themselves distracted. Poor parenting is usually the result of parents who are distracted by some entertainment or social thing or working, and therefore the children can't deal with their own distraction because they're not being properly shaped by their parents. So it's a kind of vicious cycle which is very destructive. But alhamdulillah, in religion, we have all of the disciplines of religion help us to concentrate. The prayer is the gift of the Allahu Akbar at the beginning of the prayer is a reminder that everything else is not really important. You, as it were, push it behind you, and then there's just Rabb al-Alameen, and you know that there's only one thing you should be thinking about in that time, and for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you're free, you're in a contemplative space, liberated from all of those distractions. And if you've finished the prayer and you realize, well, what was I thinking about, then you've missed that opportunity that heaven has given you. And the fast as well. If you look at some even quite secular websites about intermittent fasting, which is quite
like
a
health
common
benefits
thing.
And things,
Like there's something called gofasting.com, which I was looking at this morning just to see what that kind of secular perspective has to say. They actually advocate fasting